Psychologists, these 7 weird traits reveal a genius-level mind. As Albert Einstein once famously said, the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. Welcome back to Spiritual Wisdom, where today we are diving deep into the fascinating intersection of psychology and the soul. While the world often looks for genius in test scores and academic titles, true brilliance often hides in the most unexpected and sometimes weird personal habits. We've identified 7 unconventional traits that suggest you might possess a genius-level mind. And by understanding these, you can unlock a higher level of personal growth and daily fulfillment. But before we begin, I want to hear from you. Which quirky habit of yours has always made you feel a little different from the crowd? Share your story in the comments below, and let's explore how your unique traits might actually be your greatest strengths. 1. Productive self-talk. While the casual observer might mistake a person talking to themselves for someone losing their grip on reality, psychologists suggest that this vocalized internal dialogue is actually a hallmark of a genius-level mind and a profound sign of a burgeoning spiritual awakening. This practice of productive self-talk functions as a sophisticated mental strategy, acting as a bridge between abstract intuition and concrete logic, allowing high IQ individuals to process dense, multi-layered information with a speed that silent thought often cannot match. When we speak our thoughts into existence, we are essentially narrating our own cognitive development, using the vibration of our voice to anchor drifting ideas into the physical realm. This externalization acts much like a mirror for the soul. Just as a painter steps back from the canvas to see the composition more clearly, the genius uses their own voice to create a perspective shift, viewing their problems as if they were a consultant to their own life. This habit is deeply intertwined with spirituality, as it fosters a rare level of self-intimacy, where the individual becomes both the compassionate observer and the active participant in their own evolution. Beyond mere organization, this verbalized processing serves as a powerful tool for emotional alchemy and real-time thought management. By giving a name and a sound to complex emotions, an individual can strip away the overwhelming power of the unknown, transforming fear or confusion into a structured syllabus for growth. There is an old metaphor that describes the mind as a vast, dark library. Without the flashlight of directed speech, one might stumble over the same obstacles repeatedly, but by speaking aloud, the genius illuminates the path, turning a chaotic mental space into a sanctuary of clarity. This process mirrors the journey of a spiritual awakening, where one learns to distinguish the chatter of the ego from the steady, purposeful guidance of the higher self. Instead of being lost in a silent storm of rumination, the genius uses self-talk as a rhythmic anchor, ensuring that their focus remains sharp and their intentions stay aligned with their ultimate purpose. By skillfully weaving these vocal reflections into their daily lives, they create a seamless flow of consciousness that allows for deeper introspection and a more profound connection to the mysteries of the universe, proving that what society calls weird is actually the sound of a mind operating at its highest frequency. If this message resonated with you, comment below. I speak growth into myself to affirm your productive self-talk and step deeper into your spiritual wisdom journey. 2. low tolerance for small talk. While you might often feel like an outsider when the room is filled with the hum of superficial chatter, your low tolerance for small talk is actually a significant indicator of a high-functioning, genius-level mind that is deeply connected to your broader spiritual development. You likely find that engaging in mundane discussions about the weather or routine daily updates feels physically and mentally draining, almost as if your brain is starving for a more substantial form of nourishment that surface-level interaction simply cannot provide. This aversion is not about being antisocial or elite. Rather, it is a reflection of your innate craving for depth and meaning, a trait that aligns you with the world's greatest thinkers and seekers of truth. When others are content with the predictable, you are busy scanning the horizon for philosophical questions and complex pattern finding, seeking to understand the why behind existence rather than the what of the immediate moment. You possess a unique intellectual and spiritual architecture that prioritizes substance over social niceties, which is a hallmark of someone whose spirituality is woven into their cognitive process. Highly intelligent individuals often view conversation as a bridge to discovery, and when that bridge leads nowhere, they naturally withdraw to preserve their energy for higher pursuits. This characteristic reveals that you are wired for a deeper level of engagement with the universe, where every interaction is an opportunity to explore the mysteries of life and the intricacies of human experience. You are not just looking for information. You are looking for resonance and a connection that transcends the trivialities of the everyday world. By embracing this trait, you honor your own internal rhythm and allow your mind the space it needs to flourish in the realms of abstract thought and profound realization. Remember that your preference for silence over empty words is a testament to your mental power, as it shows you value the sanctity of your inner world and the quality of the energy you share with others. In the journey of your personal growth, this trait serves as a filter, clearing away the noise so that you can hear the whispers of intuition and the clarity of high-level logic. You are essentially a seeker of the essential, and this drive to bypass the fluff is what allows you to see patterns where others see chaos, and to find meaning where others see only the mundane. This intense focus on depth is what fuels your genius, pushing you to ask the questions that move society forward and help you understand your place in the grand design of the cosmos. As you navigate a world that often prizes the superficial, hold on to the knowledge that your weird trait is actually a superpower, a direct link to a higher state of consciousness and an intellect that refuses to settle for anything less than the truth. Highly intelligent people find surface-level chatter draining because their neurons are firing at a frequency that demands more complex input to reach a state of flow. They crave depth and meaning, preferring philosophical questions and pattern finding over predictable, mundane conversations that offer no new insights or transformations. When you find yourself sitting in a room, feeling exhausted by the weight of small talk, recognize it as your mind's way of signaling that it is ready for a more expansive adventure. You are a navigator of the deep waters, and while others may be content to stay on the shore, your destiny is to sail into the unknown, guided by the light of your own internal wisdom and the pursuit of a reality that is as vast and complex as your own thoughts. 3. Hyper-awareness and intuition. Have you ever felt as though you were viewing the world through a high-definition lens while everyone else was looking at a blurry, low-resolution screen? If you have ever noticed the slight, involuntary twitch of a stranger's lip during a tense conversation, or sensed a sudden shift in the energy of a room before a single word was spoken, you are likely tapping into a rare level of cognitive power that psychologists associate with a genius-level mind. This trait, known as hyper-awareness, is far more than just being observant. It is a hyper-resolution view of reality where your brain instinctively processes micro-expressions, subtle shifts in vocal tone, and complex behavioral patterns that the average person completely overlooks. When we explore this kind of mental depth, we are venturing into the sacred realm of spiritual wisdom, where the boundaries between raw, analytical intelligence and intuitive soul knowledge begin to blur into one cohesive experience. As the legendary Albert Einstein once wisely noted, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. By recognizing these hidden patterns in your daily life, you are actually exercising a gift that most of modern society has suppressed in favor of loud, surface-level distractions. This level of awareness means your mind is a perpetual motion machine, constantly scanning, cataloging, and interpreting data at a rate that is frankly staggering, making you deeply intuitive about the people and environments around you. You do not just hear what someone says. You hear the hesitation behind their words. You see the mask they are wearing, and you feel the weight of their unspoken emotions as if they were your own physical sensations. This profound sensitivity is the hallmark of a mind operating on a different frequency, yet it often carries a heavy price that many geniuses struggle to manage in a world that never stops moving. Because your brain effectively never shuts off, you likely experience a unique, bone-deep form of mental exhaustion that others might mistake for simple tiredness or social anxiety. In reality, this fatigue is the result of your cognitive engine running at such a high revolutions per minute rate that the sheer volume of sensory input becomes overwhelming. You are essentially a human supercomputer processing terabytes of emotional and environmental data every single day, which requires an immense amount of spiritual and mental energy to sustain. To navigate this intense reality, you must lean into the spiritual wisdom, which teaches us that our sensitivity is our greatest strength and a bridge to higher understanding, rather than a burden to be carried in silence. As the poet Rumi beautifully suggested, the beauty you see in me is a reflection of you, implying that your ability to perceive the intricate, beautiful, and sometimes painful details of the world is a direct reflection of the vast, complex architecture within your own spirit. This hyper-awareness is one of the 7 weird traits that reveal you are not just intelligent. You are operating with a genius-level capacity to synthesize the visible and the invisible into a single truth. While those around you are content with the superficial layers of existence, you are diving into the deep end, uncovering the hidden structures of human behavior and the very fabric of the universe. It is a lonely path sometimes, being the one who notices everything and forgets nothing. But it is also a path of incredible discovery and a profound connection to the underlying truth of our shared existence. Your always-on brain is a master tool for creation and empathy, allowing you to bridge the gap between cold, hard logic and the warm, vibrant pulse of the human experience. Embracing this trait means accepting that your exhaustion is a byproduct of your greatness and that your intuition is a reliable compass guiding you through a world that often feels chaotic and unobservant. Are you ready to trust your inner signals and sharpen your intuition? If so, comment below. I trust my intuition to affirm your awareness and step fully into this journey of spiritual wisdom. 4. Overthinking as future simulation. When we observe the phenomenon of overthinking through the lens of high-level psychology and ancient spiritual wisdom, we begin to realize that what the modern world often mislabels as a frantic state of anxiety is actually a sophisticated manifestation of intense pattern recognition. This mental process is far from a malfunction. Rather, the minds of those with genius-level capabilities function as advanced simulators, perpetually analyzing a multitude of branching outcomes and uncovering hidden risks that remain invisible to the average observer. Imagine the mind not as a source of stress, but as a grand laboratory where every potential decision is stress-tested against the laws of reality before a single step is taken. This constant activity is a primary indicator of a spiritual awakening, as the individual becomes hyper-aware of the delicate threads that connect cause and effect across the fabric of existence. To navigate this life with such a high-frequency intellect means you are never merely looking at a singular event, but rather observing the ripples it sends throughout the entire pond of human experience. This ability to simulate the future is much like the ancient metaphor of the weaver who sees the finished garment while the wool is still being spun. It is a gift of foresight that requires an immense amount of cognitive energy and a deep connection to one's inner spirituality. By calculating every what if and dissecting every possible path, the genius mind is seeking a harmony between logic and the divine flow of the universe. This process creates a seamless flow of thought where the intellect serves the spirit, ensuring that every action taken is in total alignment with a higher purpose. Because the mind can see so many moves ahead, it often pauses to calibrate, a moment of stillness that others might mistake for indecision, but which is actually the final stage of a complex simulation. This internal machinery is designed to protect and to optimize, acting as a bridge between the physical world and the deeper truths uncovered during a spiritual awakening. The burden of a busy mind is transformed into the beauty of a visionary perspective, where the ability to recognize patterns becomes a sacred tool for navigating the complexities of the human condition. When you find yourself trapped in the cycle of deep thought, you are not lost. You are simply exploring the vast architecture of possibility, refining your understanding until only the most truthful and resonant path remains. This is the hallmark of a spirit that refuses to settle for the mundane, choosing instead to engage with the world with a level of depth that defines the very essence of true genius. 5. Selective social circles. They are not antisocial. They are deeply energy efficient, and this distinction matters more than most people realize. Psychologists note that individuals with unusually high cognitive depth tend to experience social interaction differently not as a source of constant stimulation, but as an exchange that carries a real energetic cost. You may recognize this in yourself if you feel mentally drained after surface-level conversations, yet revitalized after one meaningful exchange with someone who truly understands you. Rather than seeking frequent interaction, you instinctively seek alignment because your mind is always processing ideas, emotions, and patterns at a level that makes unnecessary social noise feel disruptive rather than enjoyable. This preference for a selective social circle is not avoidance. It is refinement. You are drawn to a very small number of authentic connections because depth matters more to you than quantity. In these relationships, there is no need to perform, impress, or constantly explain yourself. Silence does not feel awkward, and conversation does not feel forced. Psychologists associate this pattern with heightened self-awareness and strong internal focus, where the mind naturally prioritizes quality input over constant stimulation. When social environments lack meaning, they drain you. When they contain truth, curiosity, or shared values, they nourish you. This is why crowded social obligations often feel heavy, while solitude or intentional companionship feels restorative. As your awareness grows, especially in the context of spirituality and spiritual development, this selectivity becomes even more pronounced. Inner growth requires space to think clearly, feel honestly, and integrate experiences without external pressure. When your social circle is too large or too shallow, your inner signal becomes fragmented. You begin to sense that constant interaction pulls you away from yourself rather than bringing you closer to others. Choosing fewer relationships is therefore not a rejection of connection, but a commitment to coherence. You protect your mental and emotional bandwidth because you understand, consciously or not, that clarity cannot thrive in chaos. People who do not operate at this level may misinterpret your boundaries. They may see distance where there is discernment, or coldness where there is sensitivity. Yet the truth is often the opposite. You feel deeply, think intensely, and notice subtleties others overlook. Because of this, careless interactions affect you more strongly. Psychologists observe that highly intelligent minds are often more sensitive to emotional incongruence, unspoken tension, and social pretense, which makes superficial environments exhausting. You are not detached. You are highly attuned. Limiting access to your inner world is not a defense mechanism rooted in fear, but a conscious strategy rooted in self-respect. Over time, this pattern shapes the way you relate to the world. You stop chasing belonging and start cultivating alignment. Instead of asking whether you are accepted, you begin to ask whether an environment supports your growth, values, and inner peace. This shift reflects psychological maturity, where external validation loses its grip and inner stability becomes the priority. In spiritual development, this is a crucial stage because growth is no longer measured by how connected you appear, but by how grounded you feel. You learn that being alone does not mean being lonely, and that a small circle does not limit your life. It concentrates it. The practical message within this trait is simple yet powerful. Protect your mental energy with intention, just as you would protect your physical health. Allow yourself to choose depth over frequency, resonance over obligation, and truth over performance. Recognize that selective social circles are not a flaw to be corrected, but a signal of an advanced inner operating system. When you honor this trait instead of resisting it, you create conditions for sustained clarity, emotional balance, creativity, and genuine spiritual development, where your relationships support who you are becoming, rather than pulling you back into who you have outgrown. Stay connected with a community of conscious thinkers by subscribing to our channel. Here, we explore spiritual wisdom, depth psychology, and the quiet traits that reveal a genius-level mind. Remember, protecting your energy and choosing your circle wisely is not isolation. It's alignment with who you truly are. 6. Constructive daydreaming. What many people casually label as being absent-minded or lazy is often a sign of constructive daydreaming, a mental state in which the mind is deeply engaged in internal world-building rather than disengaged from reality. When you seem quiet, distant, or lost in thought, your brain may actually be activating its most advanced systems for creativity, planning, and meaning-making. Psychologists explain that this state triggers the default mode network, the same network responsible for long-term vision, abstract reasoning, and complex problem-solving. Instead of reacting to the immediate environment, your mind steps back to simulate future scenarios, connect unrelated ideas, and explore possibilities that cannot be reached through linear thinking alone. This is not mental drift without purpose. It is a highly organized form of inner work that often operates beneath conscious awareness. During these moments of mental wandering, your brain performs strategic rehearsals, testing outcomes and refining insights in the background. That is why your best ideas often appear unexpectedly while you are walking, staring out a window, or doing something repetitive. Albert Einstein captured this truth perfectly when he said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge," because imagination allows the mind to move beyond existing facts and generate new realities. What looks like inaction on the outside is frequently deep cognitive activity on the inside, where imagination and logic quietly collaborate. People who naturally enter this state tend to think further ahead, tolerate ambiguity better, and resist short-term impulses in favor of long-term outcomes. This form of thinking also carries a profound connection to spiritual wisdom, because constructive daydreaming bridges the conscious mind with intuition. Carl Jung emphasized this inner dialogue when he wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." In this inward-facing state, your mind is not escaping life, but interpreting it at a deeper symbolic level. Emotions, memories, and abstract ideas merge into patterns that later emerge as clarity, insight, or creative breakthroughs. Many innovators, philosophers, and artists have relied on this quiet inner space, understanding that not all intelligence expresses itself through constant speech or visible effort. Modern society often praises relentless productivity and constant stimulation. Yet this mindset overlooks the invisible labor of the mind. Steve Jobs once noted, "Creativity is just connecting things, and meaningful connections require mental spaciousness." Constructive daydreaming provides that space, allowing thoughts to mature naturally rather than being forced into premature conclusions. When you rush yourself out of these reflective states to appear busy, you interrupt a process that thrives on patience and subtlety. From the perspective of spiritual wisdom, these moments of inner wandering are not distractions, but invitations to listen more deeply, to trust that silence can be as productive as action. Understanding this reframes how you see yourself. If you find your mind drifting inward, it does not mean you lack focus or discipline. It often means your mind is operating at a higher level, synthesizing information, exploring meaning, and preparing insights that will surface when the time is right. What appears empty from the outside is frequently full on the inside, and within that fullness lies creativity, foresight, and a quiet intelligence that works best when it is not rushed or misunderstood. 7. Relentless questioning of authority. Genius-level minds are rarely comfortable accepting ideas, rules, or traditions simply because they come from authority. There is an almost instinctive need to understand the deeper why behind every instruction, belief, or system they encounter. This is not driven by ego or defiance, but by a genuine commitment to logic, coherence, and truth. Psychologists note that highly intelligent individuals tend to prioritize internal reasoning over external approval, which means blind obedience feels unnatural to them. When a rule exists, they want to know how it was formed, what problem it solves, and whether it still serves a meaningful purpose in the present moment, rather than following it automatically out of habit or fear. This relentless questioning often places them at odds with social norms, especially in environments that reward conformity more than critical thought. While others may accept traditions because they are familiar or socially reinforced, the genius-level mind experiences discomfort when something lacks rational or ethical grounding. That discomfort becomes fuel for inquiry, pushing them to examine assumptions that most people never stop to question. As Albert Einstein famously said, "Unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth," a statement that perfectly captures why these individuals resist surrendering their thinking to institutions, titles, or collective consensus without personal verification. As this pattern deepens, questioning authority becomes less about opposition and more about discernment. These minds learn to separate guidance that encourages growth from control, that limits autonomy. Psychology shows that this capacity for discernment is a hallmark of advanced cognition because it requires holding multiple perspectives, analyzing long-term consequences, and tolerating uncertainty without rushing toward easy answers. This mental independence often overlaps with spirituality because genuine spiritual inquiry also demands that a person look beyond inherited beliefs and externally imposed dogma. During a spiritual awakening, this trait intensifies as individuals begin to recognize how many social structures are built on fear, power preservation, or outdated assumptions rather than wisdom. Rather than rejecting authority entirely, genius-level thinkers refine their relationship with it. They are willing to learn from experts, traditions, and mentors, but only when those sources withstand scrutiny and align with reason and inner truth. Carl Jung's insight that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are resonates strongly here, because becoming authentic requires dismantling borrowed beliefs that were never consciously chosen. This process can be isolating, as questioning authority often leads to social misunderstanding or resistance, yet it also sharpens perception and strengthens self-trust, allowing these individuals to navigate life with greater clarity and integrity. Over time, relentless questioning becomes a foundation for spiritual wisdom rather than intellectual arrogance. The individual no longer seeks permission to think or to believe, but assumes responsibility for their own understanding of reality, morality, and purpose. This is where spirituality and spiritual awakening converge with psychology. Both emphasize inner authority over external validation. By refusing to accept surface-level explanations, the genius-level mind moves beyond compliance and into conscious participation with life itself, guided not by blind obedience, but by thoughtful inquiry, ethical reasoning, and a deep commitment to truth. If this resonated with you, don't keep it silent. Declare your awareness in the comments by writing, "I think for myself, and I question with wisdom." And if you're drawn to deeper insight, subscribe and stay connected with spiritual wisdom for more truths that challenge the mind and awaken the soul. In essence, what society often labels as weird is frequently the hallmark of a mind operating on a higher frequency. By recognizing these 7 traits within yourself, you aren't just identifying high intelligence, you are uncovering the unique blueprint of your own genius. Remember, your path to spiritual and intellectual growth often begins where the conventional world ends. If this exploration resonated with you, please hit the like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. To continue diving deep into the mysteries of the mind and soul, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming journeys. Thank you for watching, and stay enlightened. You're not lost. You're just afraid to begin. The philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." Yet for many of us, that first step feels like standing at the edge of a vast, unknown canyon. We often tell ourselves we are lost or waiting for the right time. But the truth is usually much simpler. We are just afraid to begin. Welcome back to Spiritual Wisdom, where today we are diving deep into how you can transform that paralyzing fear into the fuel for your personal growth and lasting happiness. Life isn't passing you by. It's waiting for you to claim it. What is one dream you've been putting off because of fear? Watch until the end to learn how to bridge the gap between where you are and where you're meant to be. And be sure to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your journey might just inspire someone else to take their first step today. 1. The myth of being lost. The sensation of being lost is rarely a true lack of direction, but rather a sophisticated illusion crafted by the ego to delay the inevitable discomfort of a spiritual awakening. We often tell ourselves that we are wandering in a trackless wilderness. Yet if we look closely, we find that the fog surrounding us is not a natural weather pattern of the soul, but a deliberate smokescreen designed to protect us from the perceived threat of change. According to Jungian philosophy, the ego is a master of these defensive maneuvers, creating a state of artificial confusion to shield us from the existential pain that accompanies any significant transformation. This internal haze serves as a buffer between who we are and who we are destined to become, allowing us to stay within the familiar boundaries of our current identity rather than stepping into the unknown. When we claim we do not know what to do, we are often engaging in a subtle form of self-deception, because deep within the quiet chambers of our intuition, the path has always been visible. The truth is that we are not lacking a compass. We are simply terrified of the destination it is pointing toward. The weight of this realization is what we often describe as feeling stuck or adrift. Yet these words are merely masks for a deeper fear of the high price that comes with following our true calling. To embark on a journey of genuine spirituality is to accept that the old versions of ourselves must be surrendered to make room for a higher state of consciousness. Like a traveler standing at the edge of a vast, dark forest, we might find ourselves suddenly checking our bags for the 10th time, or claiming the stars are too dim to guide us, all while knowing exactly which trail leads home. This resistance is a natural response to the magnitude of the soul's demands, as the ego recognizes that once we begin, there is no returning to the safety of our former ignorance. We choose the myth of being lost because it grants us a temporary reprieve from the responsibility of our own power, acting as a sanctuary where we can hide from the light of our own potential. However, the longer we linger in this manufactured confusion, the more we realize that the cost of staying still is far greater than the cost of moving forward. Transitioning from this state of paralysis requires a courageous confrontation with the smokescreen itself, acknowledging that our uncertainty is a choice rather than a circumstance. We must understand that the feeling of being lost is actually a sign of proximity to greatness. The ego only fights this hard when it knows we are on the verge of a breakthrough that will change us forever. Instead of searching for external maps or waiting for a sign from the heavens, we must be willing to walk through the fire of our own resistance, trusting that the path will reveal itself one step at a time. The moment we stop negotiating with our fear and admit that we have always known the way, the illusion of being lost dissolves instantly. This clarity is the hallmark of a true spiritual awakening, where we finally trade the comfort of our excuses for the thrill of our expansion. By embracing the direction we have been avoiding, we discover that we were never truly lost at all. We were simply waiting for the moment we were brave enough to finally begin. Are you ready to stop waiting and begin your true path? If this message resonated with you, comment below, "I choose to begin," and declare your commitment to your journey of awakening. 2. The symbolic death. To truly begin something new in your life, you must first come to terms with the reality that the current version of you has to die, a process that sits at the very heart of spirituality and genuine spiritual development. This is why you feel that heavy, paralyzing weight in your chest whenever you contemplate a major shift. You are not actually lost or lacking a destination, but rather you are terrified of the symbolic death required to move forward. Starting a new chapter necessitates the intentional destruction of an identity you have spent years, or perhaps even decades, meticulously constructing. Whether you have defined yourself as the stable professional, the people pleaser, or the perfect partner, these labels have become a cage that feels like a home. Your ego will fight desperately to protect these structures because it instinctively prefers familiar pain over the abyss of a new, unknown existence. You have anchored your sense of safety in the known, even if that reality makes you miserable, because the ego perceives any fundamental change as a literal threat to your survival. When you stand on the precipice of a new life, you are not merely looking at a different career path or a change in scenery. You are witnessing the inevitable end of the person you used to be. You must realize that this intense fear is not a warning to stop, but a confirmation that you are standing at the threshold of a profound transformation. True growth is not a simple matter of adding new skills or positive habits to your current frame. It is an alchemical process of burning away the dross of your old self to reveal the gold hidden underneath. This abyss you fear is actually a fertile ground of pure potentiality, yet you view it as a void simply because you cannot yet see the reflection of the person you are becoming. You may find yourself clinging to the wreckage of a ship that has already sunk, hoping it will somehow carry you to shore, when the only way to reach a new land is to trust your strength and swim into the deep blue. Every great tradition within the realm of spirituality teaches that a seed must break and cease to be a seed in order for the tree to grow, and you are currently in that necessary breaking phase. It feels like destruction, but it is actually the highest form of creation taking place within your soul. Your anxiety is a protective mechanism of a mind that wants to keep you small and safe. But your spirit understands that you were meant for a journey much larger than the narrow box of your current comfort zone. To choose spiritual development is to consciously participate in this cycle of death and rebirth, accepting that you cannot carry the heavy baggage of your past into the brightness of your future. You must be willing to be a beginner again, to be nobody for a period of time, so that you can eventually emerge as the person you were truly meant to be. This transition involves letting go of the desperate need for approval from those who only recognize the old version of you, and trusting that the universe will provide the bridge as you step off the cliff. The middle period is often the most grueling because you are no longer the person you were, but you have not yet fully inhabited the person you are going to be. You are in the chrysalis, where the old structure melts away before the wings are formed. Do not let the silence of this phase fool you into thinking you are failing. This is where the most vital work occurs, in the quiet moments where you choose faith over the ego's demand for absolute certainty. You are being called to trade your perceived security for the freedom of your soul. And while that trade is frightening, it is the only way to truly live. Embrace the trembling in your hands as a sign of life, and walk forward into the unknown, knowing that the only thing you are truly losing is a version of yourself that you have already outgrown. 3. The 3 invisible terrors. Deep within the quiet spaces of your soul, you may feel as though you are wandering through a thick, directionless fog. Yet the profound truth offered by spiritual wisdom is that you are not actually lost. You are simply standing paralyzed at the threshold of a new life because you are terrified to begin. This paralysis is driven by 3 invisible terrors that act as silent anchors, the first of which is the perceived death of your identity. You have spent years constructing a version of yourself based on your job title, your relationships, and your social standing, and the thought of stepping into the unknown feels like a literal ending of your existence. You cling to the old version of yourself because it feels safe, even if it no longer fits, forgetting that growth requires the shedding of old skins. As the philosopher Lao Tzu profoundly noted, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." By refusing to start, you are attempting to protect a ghost. choosing the suffocating comfort of a persona that has already served its purpose rather than embracing the expansive, authentic self that is waiting to be born. This fear of losing who you were prevents you from discovering who you are meant to become, keeping you trapped in a cycle of mourning for a life that no longer sustains your spirit. Transitioning from this fear of loss, you encounter the second invisible terror, the overwhelming weight of total responsibility. For a long time, you may have told yourself that you are merely waiting for a sign, a cosmic green light, or a perfect moment to arrive before you take action. However, this waiting is often a clever disguise for your ego's desire to avoid accountability. As long as you are waiting, you are not responsible for your life's direction. You are a passenger in the hands of fate. But the moment you choose to begin, the burden of success or failure shifts entirely onto your shoulders, and that level of agency can feel frighteningly heavy. You realize that there is no longer anyone else to blame for your stagnation. And as George Bernard Shaw famously stated, liberty means responsibility. That is why most men dread it. Embracing spiritual wisdom means recognizing that this responsibility is not a burden, but the ultimate form of empowerment. When you stop looking for external validation or divine permission, you reclaim the power to shape your own destiny, understanding that even a mistake made in pursuit of your truth is more valuable than a lifetime of passive safety. Beyond the fear of responsibility lies the third and perhaps most primal terror, the sheer vastness of the unknown. Your ego is an ancient mechanism designed for survival, and to the ego, uncertainty is synonymous with danger. It would rather keep you in a state of known misery, a job you hate, a stagnant relationship, or a dull routine than allow you to step into an uncertain freedom where the outcomes are not guaranteed. You stay where you are because the pain you currently feel is familiar and predictable, making it feel safer than the potential joy that exists just beyond your current horizon. This instinctual resistance creates a mental prison where you trade your potential for the illusion of security. To break free, you must train your mind to see the unknown not as a threat, but as a field of infinite possibility where your spirit can finally expand. As Ralph Waldo Emerson encouraged, always do what you are afraid to do, because it is only by crossing the border of your comfort zone that you can access the deeper layers of your being. By confronting these three terrors, the death of your old identity, the weight of your own choices, and the mystery of the future, you begin to realize that the path was never hidden from you. You were simply waiting for the courage to realize that you are the architect of the way forward, and the only thing standing between you and your evolution is the willingness to take that first, terrifying, and beautiful step. Comment, I am no longer lost, if this wisdom found you at the right time. 4. The hidden benefit of stagnation. The concept of the shadow benefit of stagnation serves as a profound psychological anchor, a hidden sanctuary where we retreat when the weight of our own potential becomes too heavy to carry. While we often lament our lack of progress to friends and mentors, claiming that we are simply lost or waiting for a divine signal, there is a secret, comforting safety in remaining exactly where we are. In this state of perpetual limbo, we are shielded from the stinging arrows of external judgment and the terrifying possibility of failing in the public eye. As long as we do not try, we cannot truly fail. We remain cocooned in a world where our limitations are never tested and our flaws are never exposed to the cold light of day. This inertia is not a void, but a protective barrier that keeps us from the vulnerability of being truly seen. We find ourselves lingering in the shimmering realm of possibility, a seductive space where we can still imagine ourselves as anything a visionary, an innovator, or a sage without ever having to endure the friction of reality. This attachment to what could be acts as a barrier to true spirituality, as it prioritizes the ego's desire for an unblemished image over the soul's fundamental need for genuine experience. Moving from this infinite landscape of thought into the narrow realm of action feels like a loss of freedom. Yet it is the only path toward a meaningful spiritual awakening. To act is to commit, and to commit is to choose one specific identity while mourning the 1,000 other versions of ourselves that might have been. It is the daunting transition from being a person of potential to being a person of practice. We often stay stuck because we are terrified that once we commit to a single path, we will discover that we are not as gifted or as capable as we imagined ourselves to be in our dreams. However, this stagnation is a form of spiritual dishonesty. It is a refusal to engage with the world as it is. By clinging to the safety of being lost, we avoid the heavy responsibility of our own power. We must realize that the shadow benefit of safety is actually a cage that prevents the expansion of our consciousness, connecting this internal resistance to our external reality. We see that the fear of beginning is actually a fear of the truth of our own existence. We are not waiting for a map. We are waiting for the courage to be imperfect. Only by stepping out of the safety of the fog and into the definitive, often messy realm of action can we begin to transform our abstract wisdom into a lived reality, finally shedding the illusions that keep us small so that we may finally grow into our destined shape. 5. Movement over clarity. You often find yourself standing at the edge of a new chapter, feeling a deep sense of stillness that you mistake for being lost. But the truth is much simpler and perhaps more challenging to face. You are not lost. You are just afraid to begin. This paralysis usually stems from a desire for total certainty. Yet you must understand that clarity is not a prerequisite for movement. Rather, clarity is the reward for action. In the journey of spirituality and your personal spiritual development, you might feel that you need a map of the entire forest before you take a single step into the trees. But the universe does not work that way. When you wait for the right moment or a perfect plan, you are actually engaging in a subtle, sophisticated form of procrastination that keeps your soul stagnant. You are asking for the light to shine on the entire path, but the spiritual law of growth dictates that the light only turns on for the second step once you have had the courage to take the first step in the dark. Trusting this process is a vital part of your spiritual development because it requires you to lean into the unknown and believe that the ground will be there to meet your feet. Every time you hesitate, waiting for a sign or a guarantee, you are essentially telling yourself that your inner guidance isn't enough. But the wisdom you seek is already within you, waiting to be activated by your motion. Movement creates a kinetic energy that clears the fog of doubt. And as you move, you begin to see the world not as a series of obstacles, but as a series of unfolding opportunities. If you stay still, the fear of the unknown grows larger. But once you start walking, that same fear transforms into the fuel of experience. You must realize that you will never feel fully ready because readiness is a myth. You become ready through the act of doing. This is why movement over clarity is a central truth of a meaningful life, as it forces you to prioritize your purpose over your comfort. When you choose to step out despite the shadows, you align yourself with the natural flow of spirituality, which is always moving, evolving, and expanding. Stop demanding that the future reveal its secrets to you before you have proven your commitment to the present. The first step is often the heaviest, weighted down by what-ifs and should-haves. But once that weight is lifted through action, the subsequent steps become lighter and more intuitive. You have the power to break the cycle of overthinking by simply deciding that doing something is better than doing nothing at all. As you embrace this shift, you will find that the path reveals itself 1 yard at a time, and the perfect moment you were waiting for was actually the moment you decided to stop waiting. Your spiritual development depends on this willingness to be messy, to be uncertain, and to be brave enough to start without a compass, knowing that your heart is the only guide you truly need. This internal navigation system only calibrates when you are in transit. It cannot give you coordinates if you remain at the starting line. By accepting that your journey is a series of revelations rather than a fixed destination, you release the burden of having to be right the first time. You discover that even a step in the wrong direction provides more information than standing still ever could. This is the essence of a living spirituality. It is active, not passive. It asks you to trade your safety for your soul's expansion. Every time you push through the resistance of the unknown, you are building a muscle of faith that will carry you through much larger challenges in the future. You are not meant to see the end from the beginning. You are meant to build the bridge as you walk across it. The profound realization that movement precedes insight will liberate you from the chains of perfectionism and allow you to finally claim the life that has been waiting for you to simply show up. Don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on choosing movement over clarity and finding the courage to finally begin. 6. The danger of enantiodromia, the collapse. Deep within the quiet spaces of your soul, there is a persistent whisper calling you toward a higher version of yourself. Yet you likely find yourself standing still, paralyzed by a fear of the unknown. You might tell yourself that you are lost or searching for clarity, but the truth is often much simpler. You are simply afraid to begin. This hesitation is not a neutral act. It is a dangerous stagnation that invites a profound psychological phenomenon known as enantiodromia. This concept, a cornerstone of ancient spiritual wisdom, suggests that when any force reaches its ultimate extreme, it must inevitably turn into its opposite. In the context of your life, if you push your resistance to change to its absolute limit, your psyche will eventually rebel, manifesting a sudden and total collapse of your current reality to restore balance. As the legendary Carl Jung once noted, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If you refuse to consciously evolve, your unconscious mind will take the reins, forcing a correction through the agonizing experiences of panic attacks, chronic anxiety, or a shattering identity crisis. You must realize that these moments of intense psychological distress are not punishments dealt by a vengeful universe, but are actually desperate interventions designed to save you from a life of hollow repetition. When you ignore the natural cycle of growth, you become like a dammed river where the pressure builds to an unsustainable level. The resulting flood is not an act of destruction, but a necessary release to prevent permanent stagnation. As Ralph Waldo Emerson wisely observed, unless you try to do something beyond what you have already mastered, you will never grow. By clinging to the safety of what you know, you are inadvertently suffocating your spirit, forcing it to scream for air through the symptoms of a breakdown. This collapse is the soul's way of burning down the structures that no longer serve you, clearing the scorched earth so that something authentic can finally take root. It is an act of radical grace disguised as a catastrophe, ensuring that you do not spend your entire existence trapped in a version of yourself that you have already outgrown. Stepping into this fire requires a shift in perspective where you no longer view your fear as an enemy, but as a gateway. The discomfort you feel right now is the friction of your old identity rubbing against the vast potential of your future self. It is a sign that the you have been pretending to be is no longer large enough to contain the truth of who you actually are. Instead of waiting for the walls to crumble around you, you can choose to lean into the transformation today, understanding that the chaos of the beginning is infinitely better than the slow death of standing still. By embracing this spiritual wisdom, you recognize that your life is not falling apart. It is being dismantled so that it can be rebuilt with greater integrity. You are being called to move from a state of quiet desperation into a state of active creation, trusting that the universe will catch you once you finally have the courage to jump. Every moment of resistance is a moment of wasted life, but every moment of beginning is a reclamation of your divine power and purpose. To honor your commitment to balance and inner strength, declare your resolve. Comment below, I choose to begin, to acknowledge your path toward wholeness and inspire others to step out of the shadows of fear. The truth is, you aren't lost. You are simply standing at the threshold of a new chapter, waiting for your courage to catch up with your soul's calling. Remember, clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from the simple, brave act of taking that first step. Trust the journey, embrace the unknown, and let your inner wisdom guide you forward. If this message resonated with you, please give this video a like and share it with someone who might need a reminder to start today. To stay connected on this journey of growth, make sure to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming insights. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.